Welcome back to this series every Wednesday morning for 12 weeks, and we're several weeks into it. So, welcome. Now, what I'm going to be working on today, you're just going to have to stick around to see what it is. I'm not going to tell you in advance, you'll probably figure it out along the way. But today's theme was stitching through the seasons. Now, we're talking not in the usual way today, with like pumpkins and snowflakes and daffodils, though all those things are beautiful and lovely. But we're going to talk about stitching through the seasons in a way that it explores how the seasons make us feel rather than how they look. And we can stitch that, believe it or not. Because each season, just like each of us, it has moods, it has textures and layers that go far deeper than just the color palette we see. And through our slow stitching, we can translate some of those invisible shifts into fabric with thread and a touch of our hands. So, what do you think? When most people think about seasonal projects, don't they most often picture like spring blossoms or fall foliage? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. But what if our stitching explored what spring feels like in our heart rather than what blooms in our garden? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever thought about exploring the seasons in a totally different way? I have to pause every once in a while and what I'm talking about so I can think about what I'm doing. I always said I could never do two things at once. I try, but okay. Think about it like maybe you're stitching a mood palette, or you're stitching a weather forecast kind of for your heart and soul. Maybe spring isn't all pastels for you. Maybe spring feels chaotic, like your ideas are all sprouting at once. That's a feeling of spring. Can you stitch that? Your fabric might be messy, it might be layered, it may be tangled with all kinds of loose threads. That might symbolize that burst of creative energy that you feel in the spring. What about summer? How could we stitch the feeling of summer? Well, summer for you might be all about, let's say, saturation. Summer is bold and bright, full of colors, but it's not just about color. It's about being in summer, feeling summer. Don't we stretch ourselves in summer? Don't we dive into activities in summer that we've been waiting all year to play with? We think about summer, our hearts open wide, don't they? We can breathe. There's so much warmth and light. Oh, it feels good. What about autumn? We don't want to just stitch the color of autumn. It's not just about golden leaves. At least it's not for me. Okay. And autumn for me is when I think about stitching the feel of autumn. The feel of autumn for me is permission to let go, to just let go. Step out of the norm in the sense that I clean house. I let go of tension and strife, things I maybe have been carrying that I realize I really need to let go. Okay? Maybe I snip some edges intentionally. Let it be ragged, frayed. Maybe I let some threads just hang, or I stitch uneven, because they're all honest things. It's just a part of just letting it go. Now winter, winter might not be just white and beautiful, perfect little snowflakes. If we feel winter, it might just be quiet. You ever thought about how quiet winters can be? When I think of quiet, I feel the minimal. I want to do a minimal, simple, uncluttered piece of sew stitching. Maybe even make it monochromatic with just little subtle shifts in texture. Something that, if you're viewing it, you might have to lean in really close to figure out what's going on, if anything's going on. Those are some of the feels of the season that you might think about when you're stitching. You have personal seasonalities. Excuse me. Think about your personal seasons, not the ones on the calendar, not those. But ask yourself, when does your creative spring begin? Maybe it's not in March, in our part of the world here anyway. Seasonal calendar spring begins around March. Maybe yours doesn't. Maybe your seasonal spring starts the first day you open your sketchbook, or when you finally clean the clutter in your studio. Maybe you could stitch something that marked that time. Let's see. Let me get some of this cut off here so I can use it. How about your let's see. What about your maybe personal creative winter? When might that start? You ever had those quiet times, those times you feel like you're waiting on something, you don't know exactly what? when nothing seems to spark your creativity, when everything is quiet, you don't have anything particularly on your desk that's growing, that excites you. Everything actually seems to be very quiet and still. Maybe that's the time to pull out that simple piece that just needs a repetitive running stitch. Maybe that's your winter personality. You can even start a personal seasonal cloth where whatever season you're in, you do a little bit on that. And you just work on that off and on. Let me get a little sip of coffee this morning. Good. What about your seasonal textures? Sometimes seasons live in the feel of things, the texture of them, not the look of them. Spring might be bumpy and fresh, like with all kinds of crazy stitches and knots and new fabric combinations. But what about summer? How could we feel summer? It might be smooth with lots of flowing color, long threads, long stitches, lines that kind of mimic the ease of long days and long walks. Yeah, I could feel that summer. Autumn, we could make it crackle like leaves by adding contrast. Put different things together, like maybe a piece of wool with a piece of silk, as if everything's preparing to change one from another. Have you ever tried working blindfolded? Put out little things, get you a background piece, close your eyes, and start picking these leaves and just these little things, and just by feel, place them on your background piece. That is so much fun. And believe it or not, it is extremely creative. Sometimes too, we have what I call mental seasons. There are times when I bloom with ideas. They run through my mind so fast and furious, I could not even write them down. They're just there by the zillions. And then there are times when you just can't get anything to pop up. Nothing will grow. But each time, it matters. Whether we're stitching in the time when we're blooming with ideas or we're waiting for ideas, both matter equally. You can't bloom all the time. You can't be in one season all the time. So sometimes the most beautiful stitches, well, they come out of the quiet, the invisible growth time. Like when you're growing a flower or vegetables or whatever, you don't see what's happening under the ground, do you? But all that time, that root system is growing and stretching and reaching. We just don't see it. So that time we could stitch something when like that honors that, really. Uh, it would be a season of rest, let's say. We're in a season of rest. We could make it something gentle, forgiving, with lots of space between the stitches. It's not always about a constant race to finish. It's not always about just the rhythm. It's about the mental season we're in. Have you figured out what I'm making yet? Maybe this will help. I'm making pendants, fabric jewelry. All right. So this is my foundation piece. I may come back in and add a few pearls or sequins or beads. When I get them totally finished, I'll show them to you in another video. I think you'll enjoy that. But we want to remember that when we pick up our needles this week, think about what season you're really in. Not the one on the calendar, but the one that lives in your heart and in your hands. Maybe you're still in spring even though outside is under snow. Maybe you're in autumn in your part of the world, but in your heart a second summer has bloomed and you're ready to flow. Stove stitching isn't about perfection and absolutely interpreting the reality in reality. It's about, as we all know, presence. And sometimes we just need to be present in our present mood and notice the textures of our mood, the colors of our mood, how is our heart feeling, what's going on. No matter what season you're in, please keep stitching, because every thread you lay down becomes like a personal measuring stick to your journey through your personal seasons. And how interesting would that be? So until next time, don't forget to stay personally present in the seasons of your heart.